Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you to a special program here at flinttalkradio.com. I'm George Moss. I'm normally the host of the program that comes on at 2 o'clock called What's Going On, and today we're very glad to have in the studio a special guest, Mr. Eric Mays, who is a candidate for the 34th District. And Mr. Mays was here once before and was running for the mayor at that time. And Eric, I remember when we told you we had a camera in here, you said, you had a camera in here, we had a small camera. Now we are more sophisticated, and you see the cameras around the studio.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Here at this time. I want to first of all commend you for your candidacy, and I know you're going to running a very strong campaign. Let me ask you this.
Well, we're running the Harold Melvin and the Blue Note campaign. If they don't know the difference between some of us by now, they'll never know.
Okay. Tell me this. You've been running for a number of offices. What have you learned now that you have been on the city council about what are there any methods that you learned in campaigning, given the fact you were successful this last time and winning the position on the city council? So what was different in that campaign and some of the other campaigns that you run?
Well, in that particular campaign, I didn't really have no money. But by the time we got to that campaign, I think people were looking for somebody different. They kind of know me by now, and that's why I say in this campaign, we ain't really got money, ain't spending money. But, you know, I think what I've really learned differently is not campaign-wise, but in office-wise. Mm-hmm. In office-wise, I'm telling the, members of the public something that I already knew. The people in office ain't all cracked up to be what they should be. Mm-hmm. Some of them are, you think they're doing one thing, but they're really doing another. We just had 7 council members vote to increase water rates. And even though they voted to increase water rates, some of them say they didn't know that they were doing it, but I was sounding an alarm. I said, if you pass that budget for 2015 and 16, it includes an increase in water rates. We had the opportunity to lower the line item. It's a line item budget. It was a line that increased them 6% for 2015, 2016, and I said we should have juggled that line around and decreased them by about 30 to 40%, and I seen the money and knew how. So what I've learned differently, which will help me campaign, I've got to sound the alarm on some of the veteran people who's been in office. Some of them are now candidates. Mm-hmm. And so you can't keep voting for the same people and getting the same results. And so in 8 months, I've been in City Hall since November. I'm there usually Monday through Friday. My cell phone number, 922-4860. And then in council meetings, when we should be meeting for 5 and 6 and 7 hours, people got other jobs. They're trying to get it out of there in 2 hours, and you can't take care of the city business like that. So I'm campaigning, trying to expose people who might wear a suit and tie better than I do. They might talk better than I do, but my campaign technique is to tell on folks who've been in office who I'm not impressed with.
Yeah, I'll say this, Eric. One thing I'm impressed with is you took your activism as an outsider inside the halls of government, and I have to commend you for that, because a lot of people get inside and we can't recognize the same voice. When they're on the outside, they sounded one way, and they got inside, and then the voices changed. And you maintain your activist role in terms of making government more responsible and more accountable, and that's commendable.
Well, I appreciate that. The city council, as we know it, if you really look at the charter, even though you hear talk about a blue ribbon committee and recommendations to change the charter, it ain't the charter. It's the people who's inside the charter. For example, they say, now let's go to a manager form of government where it takes 6 council votes to hire a city manager, whereas it took 5 council votes to hire a city administrator. Whether you call that person a city administration or a city administrator or a manager, you got to have a qualified person. So they want to do a national search. You could do a national search for either one, but I prefer a city administrator and a strong mayor form of government. And when you look at the qualifications, the city council under the current charter should be like a confirmation hearing. Under the current charter, you can subpoena witnesses before you. You can put them under oath. And so year after year, council has approved a city administrator, but they really haven't did a search, and they have not ever really denied who the mayor recommends, which sometimes is a political crony that's not really qualified. And so that's what I'm trying to get the emergency manager and others to see, whether they vote them in as a manager or whether you vote them in as a city administrator. I prefer a city administrator under the current form of government, but the council must do that like a confirmation hearing. You know, when the Senate is trying to confirm a Supreme Court justice, you must get to the truth. You must ask people under oath with the penalty of perjury if they lie about what they're going to do, their qualifications. Then and only then will I feel comfortable selecting that person. It's just like when I got on the council for years. I've been watching them at the beginning of meetings. They never used to approve minutes and vote on corrections of the minutes. They didn't do it. Now, I got them voting on the minutes. My lawyer friends told me if they never voted on the minutes, it was never legal action.
Yes,
So
sir.
believe me, some people say, Mays, you're doing good on the council. I want you to stay there. Well, don't stifle my political growth. I'm trying to position myself for mayor. That's next year. I'm trying to go city council, state representative, and next year mayor.
If you win this seat, you're saying that you would only serve for 1 year and you would run for the mayor's position?
Yeah, I've served as a council person for 8 or 9 months. See, you wouldn't tell Michael Jordan or Magic Johnson, don't try to win the NBA championship. To me, the political championship in the city of Flint is the mayor. Everything is local for me. When you've got a Department of Economic Development that ain't been staffed and funded since Auto World, that's kind of outrageous. I kind of like what Uptown is doing downtown, but you've got to have economic development all around town. That's the Department of Economic Development. I know Chinese investors who will invest $2-3 billion in Flint. We ain't got no department. I know some people right now who have $27 million. We don't have no economic development department. So in order to create plants and jobs all around town, the city of Flint got to get back in the business of entrepreneurship and job development. I'm a Democrat, but I understand the contributions of the private sector.
Okay. Let me ask you a question a lot of people are asking about your campaign and your activism. Where does that come from? You've been an activist in the community a long time. Everyone knows that you are a person trying to make sure the government is held accountable. So where does that come from? Where did you get this kind of energy to be the kind of activist you've been over the
Well,
years?
Mr. Moss, quit playing games. You know you was one of our teachers out there at Beecher. I was at Beecher and I was in elementary school and you was teaching. But you know, aside from my education and interaction with people who we looked up to all the way through school, I end up, you know, going Beecher, Mount Morris, and Michigan State. And I remember when Martin Luther King got killed, we was at mess in the 4th grade and people was beating up the one white guy, and I pulled him off of him and I didn't even know what I was doing. He didn't have nothing to do with it. So that was activism the right way. Once I got to Michigan State after graduating from Flint Northern, my degree is political science pre-law. When I came back at age 20-something, I was elected 3rd vice president of the Flint branch of the NAAC and political action chair. My then president assigned me to monitor city council meetings, Sue Williams, and report back, you know, what happened at city council meetings. I learned from being in city council meetings and acting as 3rd vice president, this gets you on TV. I had never been on TV so much in my life and in the news, so I learned that everything that happens downtown, not everything, but most of it made the news. And so that excited me to be involved in council meetings and attending stuff and watching stuff happen in meetings that eventually made the news. So I kind of got hooked, to answer your question. When Sue Williams assigned her third vice president and political action chair at NAACP to attend and monitor council meetings, then from that point on, for the last 30 years, I've been attending council meetings. Even when I was a committee man at Truck and Bus, I worked out the regional office representing 9,600 laid off workers when Michael Moore was doing the movie Roger and Me. And then, you know, every plant I went to in Saginaw, I was elected recording secretary. That political science degree helped me get elected third vice president. It helped me get elected in plants. And then I believe when I put my political science degree on my campaign literature in the first ward, it helped me. Now remember, it said political science pre-law from Michigan State. Had it said any other college rather than the greatest college in the state of Michigan, Michigan State, I don't know how it turned out. But I'm here to tell you, I think that I studied politics, I learned it, I got a degree in it. Now I've lived it for 30 years. And so now I'm trying to make it apply itself in real life in the public sector.
Yeah, I didn't ask the question because I was trying to get you to say anything in particular. I really was interested in what would be the motivation for such a long track record in terms of being out there trying to hold politicians' feet to the fire, which is what I think we all need to do as citizens. And I've seen you out there over the long haul. And a lot of people have packed up and gone home. You get frustrated because you want change, and you don't see it. A lot of people that were out there at first, and you don't see them anymore.
Well, I've had success, Mr. Moss. I wrote the language that put $1.2 billion in the GM UAW 1990 agreement for the people I was representing, laid off workers. It was in the sub fund. I remember doing the calculations. Stan Marshall was the regional director for the UAW, and he helped me, and we got that done. Also, as a committee man at Truck and Bus, you know, I dealt with management on behalf of grown folks because I had to deal with discharges, sick leaves, people's pay. So I've been successful. That's what's kept me out there. Right now, I've seen where we could, in this budget year, chop the deficit down from 12 million to about 3 or 4 or 5 million. That's why I'm trying to jockey into the mayor's seat. When you're on a council and you got to argue with 8 other people just to get 5 votes to get stuff done that seem as simple as pie, that's kind of frustrating, and I've experienced that in these short 8 months. I want to maneuver to where I don't have to call and say, hey, can you go fix that pothole on Pearson Road, on Holmes Street? I want to be able to be in a position to direct the staff, go fix that pothole. I want to be able to say, I want that economic development project done. I want that done on the Buick City site. And I also want to be able to say I want 20 undercover police out there sagging their pants, befriending some people and cleaning up crime proactively. I don't believe patrol officers can do what undercover officers do if you got the right undercover officers.
That's a good point. What has been the most frustrating thing that you had to deal with as a member of the council?
People telling me I can only talk for 5 minutes.
I don't think you're talking in 5-minute sound bites.
Well, I'm just telling you, I've been able to talk more on this show so far than I have in some council meetings. You know, once we get in the game, the rules change. They try to slide the goal post back. They'll move the rim up higher, and that's what happened. I've never seen a council person elected treated such as I have. Even when, before I was found not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, they was holding press conferences before I was even charged, asking for my resignation. That was appalling to me. Why would the emergency manager, the mayor, and the council president, Kincaid, and others hold a press conference wanting the councilman to resign because he had allegedly been changing a flat tire on 475. I was never trying to change a flat tire.
And what do you attribute that to? They were preempting the process, trying to get you to resign. What do you make of that?
Well, I got my ideas. You know, I said somebody might have put some in a drink and cut the tires, and I know who. And it was some monies that I was going to talk about because I was pissed off because the vote for council president went 4 for Mays and 5 for Kincaid leadership of that council in this city, and somebody lied to me. So I attribute it to some of that, and I attribute it to the vulture syndrome. You know, the UAW through Scott Kincaid and them took my UAW money and endorsed my opponent, Anita Brown. And that was kind of hurting to my heart. With all the positions I held, you can stay neutral or you can give us our own endorsement money in the UAW. They're doing it now with Omar Sims. They didn't give him all the money. He's never been UAW. It's people like me, my mother, people I represented in the plants. You can't endorse Omar Sims and get these UAW people that know me to turn against me. So I believe the motive was they never wanted me in there. And when they thought that I had a misfortune before trial, they were trying to create a negative public image to keep me out. And they did that. And that had something to do with speaking only 5 minutes. Now that I've got 3 not guilties, nobody's ever apologized. They haven't gave me back my keys to City Hall. They haven't removed the order. And I'm telling you, the last little hangnail legal aspect of it, people think this guy should go to jail. He got 1 traffic ticket. Nobody goes to jail for their first traffic ticket in 40 years. But I've appealed that to Judge Farrah's court. If you check the record now, when Judge Perry told me to stop closing arguments and I hadn't argued my last case, then I objected for the record. Now I'm on appeal, and if I win that and get everything legally straightened out, then guess what? It'll be a grand slam. No guilties. Everything will be not guilty, and then we'll see what people have to say. So their mouth was watering like vultures.
Mm-hmm. Eric, what is it about voices like yours that is a threat to people that's in power? I would think that if you really are trying to bring about good government, you want the gadfly to be the one that's making sure that certain things are tightened down and accountability is what we're doing. So it seems to me that they consider you to be a threat in terms of being on the council. What would be the threat here in terms of having someone who's trying to bring about good government? You would think everybody would want to have that. So what's the motivation for the kind of problems that you're having down there at the city council?
I don't know. Maybe it's a stereotypical type of thing. Maybe they believe that I didn't get all A's and 1 B. Maybe they are not listening because I'm articulating solutions that hasn't been tried. When you hear me say fix the detective bureau and the undercover aspect of the Flint Police Department, or even if you bring state police, bring in undercover, and I can show you where to put them on Baltimore, Roof Street. I know the hot spots and I know the people. If I tell you there's 3,600 complaints backlogged in the Detective Bureau naming suspects where people done already told on them, then we got to fix that. So I don't know what their problem is. Maybe it's because if you fix something and you do something right, they're not the premier politician anymore. If I tell you the Department of Economic Development hasn't been staffed and funded since Auto World, and we've got to do entrepreneurship and economic development and foster jobs through that and make people where they can enjoy a certain quality of life, and it hasn't been tried, then we must do that. If I tell you that you got public safety, you got economic development, and then you've got, it's one more that I talk about. I talk about economic development, I talk about public safety, and then the lowering of the water rates. We sold a pipeline coming from Detroit to Genesee County for $3.9 million. We got another pipeline coming from Detroit to Flint that we didn't sell. If we get a fresh pot of money, 3.9 million, and listen to me close, Mr. Moss and the listening audience, the 12 million or so dollar deficit is only because the general fund borrowed 10 million of that from the water and sewer fund. In other words, if the general fund pays the water and sewer fund back 10 million, we only got a $2 million dollars. So see, we got different funds. We got the street fund, the water and sewer fund, the general fund, the debt reduction fund, the 402 fund. So when the 3.9 million came in, I asked the emergency managers, the lawyers, the council, and the finance department, where would that money go? They say it'll come in to the water and sewer fund. I say, well, hold up a minute. Why wouldn't we take it in through the general fund and then transfer it to the water and sewer fund? That would knock about $4 million off of the debt. Well, it's no legal reason why we cannot. We should do that. Well, I had some politicians on the council block that proposal, because it would have made headlines. If Mays knocked down the deficit from 10 million to about 6 million, he make headlines. So they did a counter proposal. And I'm gonna tell you it was Josh Freeman and Neely and them, and it had something to do with this 34th district race. And the counter proposal was, let's take in 2 million and 214, and the other 2 million and 215. I say, that don't make sense, and it ain't better than my proposal. I say, why wouldn't we take 2 million in through the general fund and transfer it to the water and sewer fund? If you're saying 215, take in the other 2 million, would that be after July 1st? You know, our fiscal year just started July the 1st. Right. But they knew that knocking $4 million off the debt was a home run, and it made headlines for the new council person. But early, the emergency manager, if he reduces the deficit, he knocks himself out of a job. He make about 7,000 every 2 weeks, about 14,000 a month, 180,000. So I'm not sure, for political reasons, that people are really trying to reduce the debt. That 3.9 million would have knocked it down to 6. We put 1.8 out of the 402 fund to knock it down. 1.8, 3.9, that's 5.7. And then I see another 2 million or so laying around. I can assure you, we can knock that deficit down and be out of trouble within a year.
One thing that I really am against is taking money out of the coffers where money was put in there to pay Peter, and take it out to pay Paul, and it's switching monies around.
So you didn't like when they borrowed that money from the water?
No, I think that I was telling one of the candidates running for the county commission that who's on another board out in Burton. I was telling him that if you're going to do that, then I think the voters need to come back and say then that the money they voted for this coffer, they are willing to then take it and allow it to be used elsewhere. I don't think politicians should be doing that, since the voters have predetermined where the money should go. And I think that's why we have this 19 cents gasoline tax being proposed on the state level, that they're taking money out of the road fund, and they know that we're going to want better roads. We drive every day. And they take the money out of there, and then they claim they don't have any money for the roads, and then they spent the money for the roads on something else. And I think that's wrong for politicians to do that.
Well, what I'm learning that if you got some people in there who got sense, and you know, Mr. Moss, ever since elementary school, you could look at your classroom and you could tell who got A's, who got B's, who got C's, and who got D's and E's. Now, that's not saying a person who gets a D and an E can't be brought up to an A and a B, but over a period of time in a small community such as a classroom, that's what I equate politics to. I know I got A's and B's, and my, transcripts show it, but my heart goes out to these politicians who have these positions, and I'm not sure how smart they are. Anybody with sense can add and do this budget, and I'm seeing it, and I'm telling you and the public 100%. It's just like that. What they choose to do and how you have to get 5 votes. The emergency manager got out of the way, told the council to do this $50-something million budget. They met 4 times when they should have met 12 times. They met 2 hours when they should have met 6 or 7 hours because they got other jobs. They not minding the store. And so one of my blue ribbon recommendations was city council should be full time. If I was still working 10, 12 hours at GM and hadn't come out of that, I shouldn't be a council person. I don't see nowhere in the world these guys is holding 2 jobs. They're shortchanging.
It takes that much
people.
time. You're saying
it takes that much time.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we get into the campaign for this office now, let me ask you this question. We were talking about the water rates a little bit earlier. What explains why the water is now being produced locally, but the prices have gone up? How do you explain that?
Well, let me explain it this way. I use this analogy all the time. When we was ordering lake water, which is easy to purify and clean up, and it tastes better than river water, we was ordering about 12 million gallons a day from Detroit to Flint, and it was valuable. We couldn't afford to lose it, you know, in broken pipes underground, but we managed, and we never ran out of water ordering 12 million. Let's do an analogy. Let's say each gallon cost $1 a gallon, that good lake water coming from Detroit. Now, the decision was made before I got there to break away from Detroit, build a pipeline from Port Huron to Flint. We will have good lake water again in about 2 years if everything goes right and they complete it, and you know the story. But then in the interim, in the meantime, in them 2 years, they have fired up the water plant, put money into it, and now they push a button, cut Detroit off, and now we're purifying Flint River water. And they're saying at the standards that we're testing it at, even though it might not taste exactly the same, it's harder to purify, but we went from 25% chlorine to 75% chlorine. For some reason, they made an adjustment, but the point is this. If it takes us 40 cents a gallon to do the Flint River water, and it took us $1 a gallon to purchase this good water, then we've got a 60% saving. So rather than pass that on to the customer for this quality of water, they said we're going to be greedy, keep that 60%, and over 5 years we're going to fix the pipes underground that's leaking. So by the time we start getting that water from Port Huron, it won't leak. We got to fix they call it the infrastructure. I said to them, the people I represent want lower water rates. So why don't you pass a 30% or so decrease in water rates down, and we can fix them pipes not over a 5-year period like you propose, but over a 10 or 12-year period. Let's just give and take. Don't be so greedy. And I'm here to tell you, under the proposal of the Carragandi pipeline, just like we lost, you know, underground from Detroit, we can continue to lose some water until we get them fixed, particularly with the Flint River water. I mean, can't you see it? If you're doing about 40 cents per gallon, and the Flint River water ain't never gonna go away, we in a position to pass savings on, you know.
Yeah, some now and some later makes a lot more sense than waiting until the relief comes in at a later date when people need relief now.
Yeah, I can, you know, we can search the federal government, the state government for help with the infrastructure. You know, you running people out of town with these high water rates. I'm a councilman, and, you know, I go over mother's house. I just let my water stay off for 5 months. Now, how can a councilman, well, you know, we ain't really getting no money. I took the buyout from GM. I took the $140,000. I get a reduced pension at $400 a month. We was getting $216 every week, but with this partial restoration, we up to $316. I didn't vote for that restoration and pay. I can use it, but I didn't vote for it. But I didn't vote for the budget that included increased water rates. I said, unless y'all gonna meet 5, 6, 7, 8 more times, for 4 and 5 and 6 hours to really do this budget to help the people. I can't be a part of it. Even when the minutes came and it showed I abstained, I say, no, you got to make them minutes right. I say, I abstain. I will not be a part of this mess. We need to meet and do this budget right.
Well, we're running out of time. Let me ask you specifically about this campaign. You have 8 candidates running, and so I don't see anyone coming up with 50% of the vote in the primary August the 5th. So are you seeing a runoff possibility between the 2 top vote getters? Because I can't see how 8 candidates.
No, whoever wins this primary in August in this Democratic stronghold Tuesday, I believe that will be the new state rep. It ain't gonna be the top 2; it's the top 1.
The top 1.
Yeah.
It won't be a runoff.
It won't be a runoff, and I'm telling you, I hope that black people, white people, young people, old people go to the poll and vote. And I'm asking them to, cut through the chase. Don't believe I was trying to change no flat on 475. Hear my voice, run this, share it with people. I'm smart, I'm articulate, I know people need jobs. That's number 1. If you get 30 to 40,000 people working, you fix Flint. We make money off of income tax and property tax. If you bring money in here to build houses rather than tear down, and I ain't talking about new houses. You got land bank houses that should be given to people for $1. We got VISTA programs and other things that people can be taught, even young people, to vinyl side, lay carpet. It's just we lacking political leadership. Quit voting for these same guys walking around in suits and ties, been there 8 years, 12 years, and ain't fixed nothing yet. So, you keep voting for them and believing them. I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm aggressive enough to make something happen. Watch them when I done cleared up some legal stuff. Watch them when they try to tell me to be quiet and don't talk. I go to jail for my freedom of speech rights.
Yeah, I was going to give Eric the last minute to summarize this campaign. I think he's done it already. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Eric, because you have such a nice understanding, a wonderful and deep-rooted understanding of what is going on in politics. Okay, you've heard it from the candidate running, one of the 8 candidates running in the 34th district. Hope you get out to vote for whomever you will vote for on August the 5th, next Tuesday.
Quit saying that. Let them vote Mays. We need to win this.
Okay, and I want to thank you for coming in.
You was too nice to me, Mr. Moss.
No, I brought you in to let the people hear you as a candidate, and others are invited to come in as well. Okay, I want to thank you for listening in, and this is Mr. Mays, who is running for the 34th district, and we hope you will, in fact, take what you've learned here and use it wisely in the vote next Tuesday.